Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome along to this live episode of Turfcast Podcast. Now, I don't know where Simon is. He was there when I started. Simon was there. Here he is. There he is. Oh, you can tell it straight away. What happened?
Postman banging at door, dogs barking, all went mental.
Oh, absolute bedlam. What a time for Postman. Has he got no shame?
Well, I tried to answer it on my doorbell, and then the dogs were barking, so no, I had to go and sort it.
No worries. But yeah, this is like I said, normally I start off with good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Obviously, it's just good afternoon this time because it's afternoon. We are live. So good afternoon, everybody. If you're listening again later on the podcast, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of day it is that you're listening to this. And of course, on the YouTube channel as well, because it will stay on there. Even though we are live, it will stay on there for you to watch at your leisure. As it will on Facebook as well. So yeah. And what we're going to do with this one being live is we're going to sort of like open the floor up and hope that people can sort of like get involved and set the agenda, ask us questions about things. So if you are watching this and you're watching it in a Facebook group, because that's what I tend to do, I tend to share it in loads of Facebook groups. Then make sure if you want to ask us a question, you get on the actual video. So go onto the Turfcast page and find the actual video and ask your question on there. Not because of the analytics or anything like that, just because we won't see your question if you put it in a group. It comes up on our feed, as you can see from the thing I put from Kieran Phillips there at the bottom, and Simon Maroos and Joey Shirley and Jared Warren so far. Evening, gents. Hope you're all well. It actually comes up on our live feed so we can see what people are asking us. But before we get started, how are you doing, mate? You all right? Apart from the bedlam with the postman and the dog, how are you?
Oh, I'm good, mate. And obviously, everyone knows I'm still injured at the minute with my leg. So me doing a mad dash was still like a 1 mile an hour snail trying to get across the living room. So I'm all right in general, though. I've got a bit of a cold, but I think a lot of people have got a cold at the minute, haven't they?
Yeah. Seems to be something going around about this worldwide pandemic. I think it's got something to do with it. Yeah, but you were born injured, to be fair, mate. So I think we could always tick that box. Injured, injured. Obviously, before we get started, let's do a bit of housekeeping. We are, of course, sponsored by Pitch Sports. As you can see, it's at the bottom of your screen now. It is what do I always call it? A fan hub app. Basically, you can go on, chat to other fans of Burnley, chat to fans of other clubs. I put a video on there every single week and ask a question for you to answer. We will be getting into the most recent one soon and reading people's answers out and discussing it again a little bit later in the podcast, probably in about half an hour, something like that. Hopefully we get half an hour's worth of questions so we can actually chat for half an hour. But if not, we'll just cut it off. I have seen Christian's already. Don't worry, Christian, I will be coming to that one soon. In fact, Christian, I haven't actually seen anyone that we're linked with, so put some comments in there and then we'll come back to that. But yeah, so we'll be doing that later. But if you haven't already, please download the Pitch Football app, the Pitch Sport app, should I say? Apologies. It's available on the Google Play Store. It's available on the App Store for Apple, and it's available in, Ireland as well. So yeah, it's available for everyone, and it's a brilliant app, and they've been fantastic sponsors for us for the last year and a half, nearly 2 years now. So yeah, it's an absolute pleasure to have Pitch involved with Turfcast, and if you can download it, that would help us loads. But yeah, afternoon, Matthew. Hope you're well. Afternoon, Christian. Hope you're well. I presume that's Christian. It's just coming up as Chris P. Apologies if it's not Christian. But before we do get on to the questions, there's one thing I do want to talk about. Obviously, there's been no game for Burnley this week, which has been a bit of a shitter. It's not just that it's international break as well, because normally I can handle international breaks. It's just 1 week without a game, isn't it? But of course, we didn't play the last weekend of the Premier League, so we're already at like 2 weeks now, and it's going to get to like, obviously next week we're playing Southampton, so it's been a bit of a boring time to be a Burnley fan. I think it's fair to say, Simon. Yeah,
we're never exactly top of the media's list of agenda. Like, let's write an article about Burnley. So there's never that much to talk about unless the Daz Bentley and the media team at Burnley create content for us. And then on the international front, we never had such a. I suppose in a positive way, we've never been this forward with internationals. You know what I mean? We've never had sort of an international outlay like we have at the minute. So there's positives and negatives. We are progressing. We are getting there. But we'll go into that, I'm sure.
Yeah, I just want to bring this comment from Matthew Burrows on screen now. Thank you for sharing this, Matthew. He said on YouTube, just like to say Simon looked like he was having a great time in Townley Park last Sunday when he came whizzing past. I presume that means on his handbike. He's got a little wheelchair handbike. Good to see you out and about with the family. So there you go. Thank you, Matthew. And Matthew obviously saw you. I didn't mean to put that question on screen, Joey Schilling, but I'll tell you what, I've done it now. I was trying to take Matthew's off, so we'll quickly get into this question because it's on screen now. The joys of live TV or live streaming, and then we'll get on with the international stuff. Joey Schilling says, question for everyone: what are your thoughts on Tarky not being included in the current England squad, and what are your thoughts of his chances with this summer's delayed European competition? I'll go first if that's all right. I think he's got zero chance of being in the Euros. But I do think it's an absolute disgrace that he's not in the England squad. He's a better defender for me than Mings, in my opinion, than Cordy, and I quite like Cordy. I'm not a massive fan of Harry Maguire, but I do see why he's in the England squad. John Stones is probably the one in the best form at the minute. But Dyer as well. Like, why is Dyer in that England squad and the likes of Tarky isn't? It's an absolute joke, isn't it? But it won't be at the Euros, Joey Shirley, not for me, unless there's some sort of like ridiculous injury list in defenders that helps him there. But that's not to say he isn't good enough. I'm just saying Southgate will not pick him. No,
you know what it reminded me of then? Do you know the Matt Bassett England manager? I just think it's an absolute disgrace.
It is. It's an absolute fucking disgrace.
But yeah, no, it's it is a shame that he's not in it. I can understand why he's not in it. Is he better than Mings, in my opinion? Yeah, but Mings plays a different type of football. And that is the negative connotation that you get with Burnley, unfortunately. You are a one-trick pony. That's what people think. And we know that's not the case. We see it week in, week out. We've seen some unbelievable team goals. We can do it, as Joe models off his chest.
Can I just say, I'm a trendsetter. I know I've said this on the podcast before, but we're live today, so I'm going to say it again. I had this shirt last month. February 9th, I got this short shirt. It was my birthday. It was a birthday present. I was wearing it on podcast, and all of a sudden, everyone buys it. Everyone buys it. So I'm saying it's because of me.
You can thank me for that, because Lizzie said, "What should I get Joe for his birthday?" I went, "This shirt's well smart, Lizzie." There you go.
So you're the trendsetter in all of this, is what you're saying?
Technically, yeah.
Okay.
But you could put that shirt on someone else. You might have made it flop, mate. There's a chance. But yeah, so what we're going to say then. So Tarky getting in the England side, it is hard to watch because we all know how good he is. But there's other defenders as well that you could argue the case for. It is simply Gareth Southgate style of football. Michael Keane in the form he's been in should be a starting one. Arguably, 100%. So you've got a lot of defenders to choose from. So it's not ridiculous that he's not in it, in my opinion. But it is frustrating because I know and you know that if he was in a different setup, in a different squad, playing exactly the same way, even if they were like Wolves, for example, aren't exactly in a rich vein of form, still Conor Cody's in the selection. And
Wolves are a similar side to us as well in the sense that they sit back. So I don't get this fascination with Conor Cody from Southgate, but I have said I do like him. I'd love him at Burnley. Imagine a central defence of Conor Cody and Ben Mee or something if Tarky left, or Tarky and Ben Mee, it'll be class. But I don't understand why there are these connotations linked with Burnley.
Yeah, no, I agree, mate. But it is frustrating. Do I think he'll get in the Euros? Was the second part of the question. Absolutely not. Unfortunately,
if he gets in that Euro squad, I will bare my arse on a live stream. There you go.
He won't. He said, I'm sure we had a 50 quid bet that Sam Johnson will get called up before Sir Darlaw, and that never been paid. Yeah.
Nope.
But yeah, no, it's unfortunate. I don't think he'll get in it. But do I think he will get in the World Cup the year after? All depends on this summer's transfer window, whether he gets a move.
Yeah, fair enough. And Christian, again, I'll just call you Chris from now on. As asked questions about the summer transfer window, we are going to get onto that, Christian or Chris, I promise. But I just want to quickly bring up something that Kieran has said, because I'm not watching Sky Sports News. And he says, Southgate has just confirmed on Sky Sports News that Port will be England's number one for the foreseeable future. Now, I think what he's said is, because I've got an article up here, which I will share on screen if I can remember how to do it, is that he has said that Nick Pope will be the England number one to keep the place for the Albania and Poland World Cup qualifiers. So there you go. It's on your screen now. So I think that's what Kieran's referring to. I might be wrong. I haven't seen it.
With respect to Southgate, brilliant. He's quite strong like that. We most of the time it pisses us off because we think that Pope should be in there and Pickford's in. but he always resorts back to Pickford for the qualifiers. He might put Pope in for the friendlies, but he's quite strong on the fact that he's picking Pickford. For the first time now, this is working in a positive way because Pope's now, it's his place to lose. Granted, he didn't have to do anything, let's be fair, but it's his place to lose now.
Yeah, well, obviously, I think it's a case of his, I think it's a case of he's basically saying, Kieran's referring to this article. Nick Pope has said that he will keep his place for the Albania and Poland World Cup qualifiers, simply because Pickford's injured. And he's done more to deserve his place in the squad, in my opinion, than Henderson and Johnson, and even Darlaw, who, by the way, should be in that England squad. He's a fantastic goalkeeper.
Not over Johnson.
But I'll just quickly go into it. He says Nick Pope. The article says Nick Pope to keep England place for Albania World Cup qualifiers. The headline underneath states Nick Pope to stay in goal for England World Cup qualifiers against Albania and Poland. The Burnley goalkeeper played against San Marino with first choice. Oh, wankers. They had to get that in, didn't they? Jordan Pickford out with an abdominal injury. Manchester City's Phil Foden believes a delay to Euro 2020 will benefit the younger players. That's irrelevant. I don't know why they put that in there. And then it says Nick Pope is set to be given more chances to take his claim as England's first choice goalkeeper ahead of the European Championships, with manager Gareth Southgate confirming he will play in the next 2 World Cup qualifiers. Jordan Pickford has been established as Southgate's number 1 for some time, but has missed out on the ongoing international triple header with an abdominal injury. So I presume that's what Kieran's referring to. And that's obviously good news. And I can't see anything other than Nick Pope, especially against Albania, keeping another clean sheet.
Yeah, no, hopefully. I mean, teams like that, it's his game, mate. Let's be fair. You know, you played against Germany where they're pressing high, and you've got to use your feet because you might be called upon as an outlet for the defenders every now and again. That's when we're going to see the real Nick Pope in an England squad. For games like this is where we're going to see Nick Pope at his best, because they're going to try and get set pieces. They're going to try and get corners. They're going to try and capitalise off. They're not going to be necessarily counter-attacking sides. They're going to be set piece, build-up play. Similar to what we play at Burnley sometimes, but I think that these games are made for Nick Pope.
Yeah, well, obviously, we'll go into the San Marino game. He touched the ball 5 times. That's pretty much all there is to say. They were fantastic. I don't know about you, but every time he touched it, I'm like, oh, no. Standing up, loving laugh. He was brilliant, weren't he? Fantastic.
Top guy.
But it's what is it now? 340 minutes. Without ever conceding a goal for England. 5 clean sheets in a row. Obviously not in a row in terms of games, but in a row in terms of his performances. I think 2 of them have been World Cup qualifiers, played against Kosovo, or European qualifiers, should I say. What's the word? Proper games, not friendlies. So it's good to see Pope get his chance, definitely. But looking like he'll get his chance against Albania and Poland. So I think Poland might be a bit of a test. But we know he's good enough, so.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, mate. There is type of games. I'm delighted for him. I've seen him sharing pictures of his kids stood with Pope shirts on at the telly watching dad and stuff like that. And he's class, mate. He deserves his chance. He's worked hard for it. He's climbed the ladder. He's done it in the right manner and the right way. Pickford's injury, he's devastated for him, but irrelevant to us. So let's just hope that he keeps his position, because unfortunately, with a number 1 shirt comes this responsibility where we've seen it happen to Pickford, mate. You make one mistake, your buddy hung out to dry in the press. So as soon as he makes that mistake, he's going to have broad shoulders to deal with it to keep that shirt.
Yeah, and I'm not going to use the word prone to a mistake, but he has made a couple of mistakes this season. So obviously he can make mistakes. But like you said, the Albania game, definitely, it's made for him. And even the Poland game, I'm not sure Poland are a team that will press you too much. So I think the Poland game, I think that's another game where I could even see him ended up getting into the point where I can keep him 7 clean sheets. And yeah, that's a good point that Kieran made. So obviously, for those that don't know, Kieran's got a Polish missus. So yeah, that should be fun for Kieran, to be fair. But fingers crossed, we come out of it on the right side of a result. But obviously, Nick Pope wasn't the only England international, and I've seen your questions coming in, guys. We will be getting to your questions soon. Nick Pope isn't the only international that's been in action this week. Brady came on as a sub, I think, if I remember rightly. Bailey Peacock-Farrell played, Matt Edge played, and JBG played as well. So there's been quite a few Clarets in action.
Yeah, start from the beginning then, basically. Brady, got beat against Serbia with the Republic of Ireland. He did come off the bench at quite a late sub, really, 80th minute. I don't know if anyone's seen that game, but just because there's not much to talk about Brady in that match. Shock. It's did you see the Mitrovic goal in that game?
I haven't. No, I heard it's a good goal though.
It's a great goal, and he must be looking at thinking, how the fuck am I not getting in this Fulham squad? Because it was keeper's come off his line. But not enough to make that shot. It's still a great shot. He's dinked it from 30 yards and it's just lofted over the keeper. Brilliant shot, mate. So that's probably the most exciting thing to mention. Then going into the Czech Republic game, Vidra did come off the bench again in the 65th minute, but they won 6-2 against Estonia.
They're shit, aren't they?
They are shit, but Thomas Suchek, West Ham's possibly the signing of the season in the Premier League. Or whatever. Did he come this season? He did, didn't he? Back in the last. It was this season.
I think so. All January last season. He's not been there long.
I hope it's this season because if it is, he's a massive contender in for player of the signing of the season. 3 goals. He got a hat-trick, mate, today, or whenever it were. And then I've got the unfortunate thing, say that Johan Berg Gudmundsson did play.
He didn't.
No, not even on the bench.
Oh, I thought. I'm sure I saw a tweet. I must be getting confused with Matage.
Maybe check, but I didn't see him play. I've checked the squad then. I couldn't see him on the bench. I might have clicked the wrong game by accident, but I doubt it.
I'd rather him not play, if I'm being honest. I would rather him not play. I don't want him playing and then getting injured again. Didn't he get injured last time he went away on international duty? He's just come back and they've called him back up again. Stupid. I don't understand why Burnley Football Club don't say, no, you can't have him. Just let him get right. Just let him have a summer off. Obviously not. Let him have like an international break off. And if you need to play him in the tournament, you can do. But for now, he's just coming back from injury. Man United used to do it all the time. Even with England players, Beckham, Fergie would say, you can't go. I feel like we need to be a little bit stronger with Gudmundsson because he just gets injured all the time.
Yeah, definitely. Well, he didn't play, so whether that's an injury, hopefully not, or whether it's a choice by himself, because he has done that before. He has said that he's not going before now. It's not the first time if he has said he's not playing. I remember he did it because he said last summer he wanted to get fit have a full summer getting fit, or the summer before it might have been. And then what else was there? There was another game I looked into, the Northern Irish game. They got beat 3-0, I think it was. I've turned it off, unfortunately. I had them all. Oh no, I've got it here. Sorry, 2-0 against Italy. Bailey in the net. It's
not an embarrassing scoreline, is it? It's all right. That 2-0 against Italy, decent side Italy.
Yeah. Just reading the squad, mate. Massively strong squad for Italy. Donnarumma in the net, Chiellini, Verratti, Immobile, Insigne. Yeah. And then Northern Ireland got beat with Peacock Farrell in the net. It was only 2-0. It was away from home, but interesting to sort of see that Carl Lafferty is still playing for Northern Ireland, mate. Come off the bench at 17.5 minute, former Claret. Yeah.
How is he still playing for Northern Ireland?
Who does he
even play for now? Someone put me in the comments. Let us know where he plays. I think he must be. Weren't he at a Swiss side at one point?
I'll look at him now. Carl Lafferty. Carl Lafferty 39. What the fuck?
He's 39.
No, I've clicked 39 by accident afterwards. I'll be 39 though. So let me have a look now. He's currently. Is he at Kilmarnock?
Don't know. That's about Kilmarnock. He might as well be at Paddy.
He's on a short-term contract at Kilmarnock, signed in February 2021, so he's only just gone there. But he was at Regina in Italy.
No. One thing I do want to quickly mention before we go on to people's questions, because I've seen your question, Saf Gaming, I've seen yours, Chris, Kieran, I've seen yours as well. But you've just reminded me about something that was said this week by the Northern Irish manager. And he basically doesn't like the fact that Bailey Peacock Farrell isn't playing for Burnley, and he feels like it's him. Just get rid of that and trust you to pop up at this point. Isn't playing. He feels like he's being hindered. His position at Burnley is hindering his development. So the headline is the Burnley position that could be hindering Bailey Peacock Farrell's development pinpointed. And like I said, this was pinpointed by the Northern Ireland boss, Ian Barraclough, who believes that Bailey Peacock-Farrell's lack of regular game time at Burnley could be hindering his lack of experience in dealing with certain situations. The Green and White Army suffered a 2-0 loss against Italy in their first World Cup qualifier in Parma in Group A. So-and-so put the horse in front, not interested. Peacock-Farrell, 24, has played only 5 times for Burnley since joining from Leeds in the summer of 2019. All those appearances have come this season, and England's Nick Pope is Clarets' number 1. Now, I were a little bit, of course, Bailey's going to be the number 2 when it comes to Pope. So I were a little bit disappointed with these comments, but I can see his point at the same time. What do you think?
Yeah, it's difficult because, he's getting shit games as well, isn't he, when he does come for us. It's not like, Man City, he had a stinker, but everyone had a stinker in that game.
Pope had stinkers against City.
Everybody had a stinker in that game. But he's a good player, and he does look like he's promising. My concern is, and I genuinely believe this, that if Nick Pope does get one of these moves in the summer that he's linked with, I know I've seen Spurs, I've seen United, say one of them is true. Can you honestly say, everybody in the chat, do you think, put yes or no, that Dash would play Peacock-Farrell, or would he go out and get somebody else as a number 1? Not saying as a number 2, as a number 1. I think he'd buy someone else. I think he'd buy someone else. I don't think he'd put Peacock-Farrell.
I think he'd buy someone. I don't think he's ready yet. He's still. I'm going to say he's still quite young. He's been around for a while. Exactly. So he's not that young, is he? But keepers always tend to develop a little bit later. Chris has gone with no, so Chris agrees with us. But yeah, I'm like I said, I'm saying with you. I think Dash will go out and buy somebody.
Look at Sheffield's keeper. What's his face?
Ramsdale.
Ramsdale. He's 21, something, and he's played So he's in the under-21s with White the other day.
Right. Didn't know that.
And he's playing regular Premier League football. You've got to look at that.
Dan Taylor says he'd play Norris. I don't even think he'd do that. I think he'd go out and buy somebody. I do still think Bailey's probably above Norris in the pecking order.
Yeah, 100%. Not even arguing that one.
But it's interesting because, maybe it's time to loan Bailey out to a championship club then next season.
Agree with that as well, yeah. If we're going to get someone in, why not have Norris on a bench? But Norris is a young lad as well. He was released by Wolves. He's not an old kid. He's not like someone who's come here as like a Joe Hart to Spurs for sitting on there weighing himself in for the last couple of years.
Did you see what he tweeted this week?
Yeah.
He's not this week. Oh, it's so funny. I felt so sorry for him, but it was that for context, for those who don't know, obviously Spurs got beat against Dynamo Zagreb in the Europa League. And then Joe Hart on Joe Hart's Twitter account tweeted "tick, job done" because he thought they got through. But it turns out, or so Joe Hart says, that it wasn't Joe Hart that did it. It was his social media team. And then he had to do a video saying, "Look, guys, I'm so sorry." And he'd be like, "I've just woken up myself." Like, coffee, I ain't just woken up. It was like 11 a.m. Yeah. He ain't just woken up.
That. I think that is a. You work in social media. I work in social media. Somebody's basically been a lazy bastard who's in charge of his account and scheduled a job done tweet thinking, I don't have to put any score. It can be generic, job done, qualified, wake up in the morning and just make myself a brew, not have to worry about it. And they've put job done. They got fucking beat, didn't they? They were 3-0 up, to be fair. So you would have put my money on them being a job done tweet.
Yeah, potentially. Joey Schilling, just going back to the keeper debate, he says, who would we realistically be able to buy as a goalkeeper? And then Andy Bick says, some good keeper's going to get relegated this season. I'd pinch one of those. Johnston, perfect example.
I've got a list, yeah.
Yeah, even Ramsdale. I'm not a big fan of Ramsdale.
Not playing.
Darlow's not playing.
What are yours?
He's a good keeper. For all the jokes and banter we have, he's a good keeper. Probably will. I think they'll go down. So you've got Johnson, Ramsdale, Darlow, and who's the number one at Newcastle at the minute? What's his name? But he's good as well because he's keeping Darlow out. Well, I don't know anyway, so I'm killed us both. We'll move on. We'll forget about it. Well, I tell you what, then we'll quickly go back up to one of the questions then while Simon does a quick search because he don't want to look stupid, even though everyone now knows he's searching. We had this. We had this point. There you go. We had this point off Leicester Till I Die TV. Hope you're well, Leicester Till I Die TV. We had this discussion on our show last night. Is anyone still interested in the England games? Fine when we get to the finals, but I never bother with qualifiers. I personally am still interested. That the Ariola. I was laughing at a comment. I do still like the England games. I don't like Southgate. I think he's making it a bit boring. But I'm one of those that will go away and watch England. I went to Euros with Simon, and I went again later on with another friend. I've went to the UEFA Nations Leagues as well, and I want to go into like away qualifiers. Just like a long weekend in Dortmund, something like that. It'd be class, wouldn't it? So I am still bothered about the England games, if I'm being honest. I just think it's not great to watch at the minute because Southgate plays two holding midfielders against San Marino. So I think that's why a lot of people are starting to get a bit bored of it. What do you think?
I'm 50-50, believe it or not, mate. So obviously I've been there. I've been to Russia. I've been to France with you. I enjoy it live, but on TV in my living room, a daft time on a Friday night or a Monday evening, it's always a shit times. The only reason I watched that was because Port was in the net. I watched 45 minutes and then I signed out, mate. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, I was working, so I just sort of like had it on next to me. I reckon I'd have watched it if I weren't working that properly, like intently. I reckon I would have done. But there you go, Leicester till I die TV. I'm still bothered about England games. Simon, not so much, but he is bothered. Right, I want to go back to one of the first questions we got. Kieran said, Chris P said, thoughts on the players that we are linked with. And then if you remember rightly, I asked him if we've been linked with anybody because we hadn't. And I have seen the one that is mentioned. I've seen the Carl Bartley one at West Brom and Malik Wilkes at Hull. Now, I'll be honest, I don't know too much about the lad at Hull City. But Carl Bartley's a good defender. Great, and I'd be buzzing if we signed Carl Bartley. I think he's a good defender. He was very good at Leeds when he played for Leeds. He's done very well at West Brom. Obviously, won promotion with them as well. And
very similar.
He's quite young as well. So he's not well young, but he's quite young.
Very similar to Tarky in a physical presence. If I remember rightly, similar to Tarky, played a defensive midfield role as well for quite a while, rather than just centre back. It's the type of player that you want because he can play the ball around and he's a physical presence. I think I do think it's a good one, but I do think it's a sign of what's to come as well.
I would he be the perfect replacement for Target? I'm not so sure. I don't think he's as good as Target. I think. No. But having said that, like we all know that Ben Mee is good enough to play alongside these people and make them look just as good. And I think our style of football helps them as well. Kieran Phillips, we'll just bring that one up. He's obviously responding to what we're saying. He says we need to go out for Joe Worrell, quality player, just what we need if we lose Tarks. You know what? If we lost Tarks, we already need another centre-back, regardless of whether we lose Tarks or not. We should bring Joe Worrell in, regardless of whether we lose Tarks or not. And if Tarks stays, get Joe Worrell on the bench, learning from Tarks and Ben. And then when one of them does move on or retire or whatever in Ben's case, I think Ben will be here forever, then he slots in perfectly. Stuart Rhodes is in the chat, and that means, I believe, Stuart Rhodes has sent me some stars. Now, apologies, Stuart. I think that's what that means. So we'll just quickly cut off. Right, and you have a look before we get into all the celebrations and stuff like that. Big shout out to Stuart Rhodes. I'll just put his name on screen because that's all it does for me on here. It just does that. But big shout out to Stuart Rhodes if you have sent stars. And just quickly point out as well, if you do like what we do, what you can do is support Turfcast during this stream by sending us Facebook stars. That of course helps. That helps the page and it helps us grow and things like that. So big shout out to Stuart and to everyone who's sent
145 stars.
145 stars, Stuart. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. He's a good lad, Stuart. He used to help me out on the what's it called? The fan reaction. So thank you very much, Stuart. I really appreciate that. Your help is, of course, massively appreciated. But just going back to what we were saying, bring Joe Worrell in regardless, because we need another defender. Since we lost Ben Gibson, we need another defender. Kevin Long, for me, isn't up to it. Jimmy Dunn, he's still young, looking like he might not be up for it even when he is older, but he needs a championship. He needs a championship loan for me. Thank you, Stuart. He says he loves the content, guys, at the Clarets. Thank you so much, Stuart. Your help's massively appreciated, honestly, mate. But yeah, Jimmy Dunn, get him out on loan to the championship. You know, a decent championship club. You know, like someone, Preston, for example, they were up until recently knocking on the door. And I think there has been rumours that Preston wanted him before Alex Neil got sacked.
On that note,
so I think that would have been a good loan move for him.
On that note, I was going to say that Ben Davies obviously gone to Liverpool. Rumour has that he's going out on the next window. He was only ever brought in on on a filling of gap. Let's be fair, he was filling a gap. There was so many. They've got 5 or 6 defenders out at the time. I've said it to you. You know this, that we should be signing players like that from the Championship. He's played Championship. He's left-footed. He would be the ideal replacement if Gibson moves left. Bring in someone like him because he'd probably get him on a free anyway.
Yeah. Well, it's looking like Gibson will be going to Norwich permanently anyway, even with his ankle injury. I think that part of the loan was if they went up, they had to sign him. It's looking like they're going to go up. A certain amount of points clear. He even put on his Instagram post, like, I'm gutted that I'm out. Then he put at the bottom, I'm sure I'll be back for next season, no wink, as if to say, like, obviously we're going up. So that's part of my contract. I'm definitely. So we are going to lose Ben Gibson. Not bothered about that. We lost him last summer when he kicked off. So I'm not too fussed. But yeah, I'd bring in Worrell and I would bring in the lad from West Brom as well that we were just talking about, Carl Bartley. I think and what I'd do, even then, I'd probably play Carl Bartley ahead of Worrell for a bit. And then maybe later on in the season or when Worrell's a bit older, bring him in place for that. But yeah, Ben Davies is another good shout.
Yeah, he's good. He's left-footed as well, which is what Dash likes. He likes the left on the left. And Ben Mee, when he was out, mate, we were all at sorts. We didn't have a natural left-footed player on the left-hand side. So I think if Ben, I'll tell you now, from speaking to Ben, I know for a fact that if he had to wait at Burnley, for example, to sit on the bench for a year and play, just like Tarky's had to do, just like the others have had to do, I tell you now, he'd take that 100%. And just because he's not playing for Liverpool doesn't mean he's not a good enough player. He's gone from Preston straight up to Liverpool. I don't even think they'll let him go in the summer. I'm just saying that's what the rumour is. I think I've seen his tweets and his Instagram and that, and he's playing with the first teamers. I think he's just got to wait for his chance. But if we can nick him, I'd take him. I said this to you when he was at Preston, irrelevant at the Liverpool.
Yeah, it's one of them though, isn't it? I think when you're waiting for your chance at Burnley, you know your chance is going to come. Is his chance going to come for Liverpool? I'm not really so sure. Not. Obviously, yeah, we all had. Jesus Christ, I don't know if you can hear that aeroplane on the field.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous. We don't even live anywhere near each other. It's well fighter jet going over. Apologies if you could hear that. Lee Dane, I'll bring his comment in. He says, should we be now dipping into the foreign market now we have been took over, rather looking at Championship players all the time? It's a good point, Lee. And obviously, I just think as Burnley fans, you're so used to bringing in these Championship players. But what I do like about these Championship players is they come in like hungry. They very rarely come in and think, I've made it now. I'll just sit back and relax. Josh Brown was a perfect example. He came in, he was ready to wait. And then when he got his chance, he was hungry, and he's been fantastic. Obviously, Tarky was the same. Andre Gray was the same to a certain extent, obviously, but eventually I think he did feel like he outgrew us. That's probably Tarky has now. Pope. Obviously, you can point ones out that haven't worked. Ben Gibson, because obviously he wasn't prepared to wait. You know, that's a debate we've had already on the podcast. But I think we should now have a nice mixture of bringing in Championship players and looking at the foreign market. I think we will naturally look more towards the American market, whether or not that's the right thing to do, I'm not sure. But yeah, I'd be happy with a nice mix of foreign players coming in and young, hungry Championship players coming in.
Yeah, sorry, I was just laughing at Andy's comment there. I think that's a great point, mate. I think there's an American lad at Barnsley doing bits as well. They obviously have got a lot of investment in American USA football. We've seen it, with coaching jobs being available since we was sort of 18 over there. They've put a lot of money in their academies and things like that. I know a few people that work out there, but there definitely is a market for it, and we've seen already the shift in staffing. We'll say that's the nicest way I can put it at Burnley Football Club. So they are putting the stamp on it behind the scenes, and if you don't have these people on Facebook, you wouldn't even know about it. But they are actually already making waves. So I can definitely see us tapping into a foreign market. I think the reason for myself that we would need to look into a foreign market is because the Championship has become a breeding ground of the next generation of footballers, that it's also become like Brentford's concept, if you will, is bring him in, make him develop him and sell him on for a much bigger fee. What's the word that they use for that? It's like, I can't remember now, but there's basically
player farming.
It's almost there, but they're flipping him. They're flipping players. So they're basically clubs now. And Burnley should have done it when we were back there, but we didn't really look at it that way. But you go in, you get your players, you flip them, and then you sell them on. Absolutely. Do think we should look at the foreign market, because I do think that the Championship pricing is being absolutely driven to the max, because teams in the Premier League now aren't as rich as they once were. for example, Newcastle, West Brom, Burnley.
Yeah.
There's a handful of clubs that have spent money this year.
Yeah, well, it's you make a good point, because I was just sort of like trying to look at sort of like the players that have been bought from the Championship, and we've been priced out of it. Let's be honest, and that's what obviously we were just trying to say. Because if you look at Ollie Watkins, that was the perfect type of player that we would have signed 2-3 years ago.
Cash.
Chris Flood, Matty Cash as well. And we've been priced out with these moves now because you're Leeds Uniteds, because you're Aston Villas. They've come up and they're chucking 30 million quid at these players. So we can't afford to do that anymore. So, yeah, it's a good point, that, definitely. But then how do we tap into that foreign market? Because it looks like it's something that we've not really got much experience in. As soon as we go past the M62, a lot of our scouts' petrol seems to run out and they don't really know what to do. So how do we tap into that?
That's up to the people that they get in to replace the people that are moving out now at the minute. There is a cull, as you tweeted, at Burnley Football Club. It seems anyway. But I do think that we should be looking at it. I think that if you know what you know, right? So if the Yanks are here and they're coming in and they're putting all this money into Burnley Football Club, they're not going to want to spend the money on things that they don't know is a proven format. This app that they're using is to give them confidence in whatever they are whatever they're going to invest in. It's not just about like, let's make a new technology for the sake of it. I do think that there will be a pedigree of players in the USA market. Pulisic, for example. What's his name? Who's just won? Alphonso Davies. I know he's Canadian, but he played in the MLS.
Canada,
played in the MLS. These players are playing in the elite of elite. These are Champions League players. So there is a market out there. We just need to find it, and it's cheaper than getting the Championship majority of the times, and they won't have a culture shock.
Big shout out to Gaz Alworth. Sorry, Simon. And a big shout out to Gaz. Thank you for the stars. We're showing the love. Thank you. We really appreciate it. Obviously, it helps us grow as a channel. And if you like the content, tell you what, if you like the content, send us some stars. It helps us massively. It don't have to be a lot. 25's more than enough. It's fantastic. If you haven't got any stars, or you're not in a position to send any stars, just give the stream a share. Just share it to all your friends now, because that can obviously put us out to more people. But big shout out to Gaz Howard. Thank you, mate. Your help is really, really appreciated. Joey Schilling, I've seen Kieran's comment. That's something I think me and you already discussed privately. So we'll get into Kieran's comment in a minute. But Joey Schilling says, Ivan Toney will be class, but Brentford would want a mega amount for him. Now, this is obviously what we were just saying. We've been priced out of these sort of moves. Ivan Toney, I'm telling you now, he will go for more than 30 million quid again. So that's another bit of Championship money. I'll tell you what, it would even be pushing 40, which is scandalous. I'm not saying I agree with that, but that's exactly what I think it will go for. He will go for, and we've just been priced out of that. And it's absolutely scandalous when you see that last year we were getting criticised off fans of other clubs for wanting 30 million for Tarkey, but yeah, it's perfectly normal for Ivan Toney to go for 40 million quid. Look
at West Ham. They got I can't say his fucking name now, but they got him from Brentford, Ben Rama. I'll get 2 players mixed up there, aren't I? So he's gone from Brentford to there, and that was a 20 million, but there was a loan fee as well on top of that. So even though they had to pay 20 million so they could get Lingard in because that was part of the contract, I know for a fact that the way that the loan market is just as valuable now to clubs as it is. You don't loan one of your best players to a team that's better than you unless there's a financial gain for it. So there will have been a cash fee on that as well. So even though it was a £20 million signing and everyone will go, oh, it's a bargain, 20 million, I guarantee there's a 5 to 10 million on top of that on the loan initially. Yeah. It's Andy Bix just put in the comments, Tony's been linked with a load of clubs. I'd have him, but it ain't going to happen. Spot on, Andy. It ain't going to happen. So there's probably not too much point in discussing too much of that. He would be class. Imagine he could easily replace Vidra. Not that I want to replace Vidra at the minute. He's playing really, really well, but I'm sort of like saying he's the perfect sort of replacement, I think. Even him and Vidra, we could try that as well in some pre-seasons. Going back, a few people have left some comments about wingers. Andy Bick just put one. I've just put it on the screen before his comment about Toney. And this is not a question that's been asked, but I'm going to ask it you now, Simon, and I want the people in the comments to answer in the comments as well, both on Facebook and YouTube, no matter what you're watching on. And we'll obviously share the ones on screen. What's most important this summer? Signing a centre-back or signing another winger? So is this question based on keeping the current squad? It's based if this current squad is exactly the same right now. Yeah. Oh, what's more important? So obviously in that context, Tark is staying. Do I think he'll stay? No. We've had that debate on the podcast. We're not going to have it again now.
You know what? if Tarky stayed, what's more important, signing another centre-back or signing another winger?
I'm going with centre-back. It might not be the popular option, but I think that...
No, I'm going to go with winger.
Yeah, I'm going to go with centre-back, and that's simply because the wingers that we've got on the rotation system they've got, if they were fit enough, I'm happy with them. But the defence I'm happy with. However...
I'm going to say, obviously, the flip side of that is that they're never fit enough, are they?
When Ben Mee was out, when the potential of Tarky being out, we have absolutely nothing that I think is substantial enough for the Premier League. We've blagged it for many a season with the wingers we've got now. So in my perspective of that, I would say a centre back.
You know what? That's an unpopular opinion, but I think you've saved yourself there. If you look back at how poor we were at the start of the season without Ben Mee, and then even when Tarky came back, obviously we missed Ben Mee and Tarky for the first couple of games of the season. Then Tarky came back and we were better, but we still weren't good enough. That's why it took us 8-9 games or whatever to get his first win. So I understand that actually. I think I'd see you, but I'm still going to go for winger. Obviously, Kieran says he's gone for wingers. Gaz Howarth actually agrees with you though, Simon. He says centre back, probably based on that.
Gaz. He's a good lad.
Yeah. I like Gaz. He's a good lad. He could have agreed with me though, Gaz. And then, for me, wingers. I think Brady. I don't think Brady's good enough, and he's too injury prone. I just don't think he's good enough. Thank you. This is why I do these streams. And JBG, as much as I love him, he's far too injury prone, and I get so frustrated with Goodmanson, and I get criticised so much on Twitter for saying it because he's made of glass and he's just constantly injured, and I feel we should be stronger. I feel like he should take some responsibility now. And as Chris said earlier in the stream, it's club before country. He's at an age now and a part of his career now, like Jamie Vardy did, where I think he should be thinking about knocking Iceland on the head and then retiring so he can keep fit, because I think he will benefit massively from that. And obviously we as a club, if he's still here, will benefit massively from that. So, and that's pretty much exactly what Joey Shirley's just said as well. He said, as much as I love JBG, we need wingers because we cannot continue to rely on Brownell that way. That's a perfect example of that. And thank you for putting that out, because I'd have forgot about that. Brownell, I love Josh Brownell. I think he is, at the minute, the best central midfielder we have at the club. However, when he's on the wing, I think he's dreadful. And for some reason, Dash keeps putting him there. I wouldn't even play him. If he wants to play Corky and Wesley in the middle, fine. It's the wrong decision for me, but fine. But don't put Brownell on the wing. I'd rather you put Brady out there, because as much as I think Brady isn't good enough, I think I'd rather have Brady there than Brownell. But I think that's what I'd do. Definitely, I think I'd go for a winger. But I think Joey Shilling makes a good point there, and thank you for bringing that up, Joey.
My sort of response to the ones that are saying wingers, 100% I would love a flashy winger. 100% I'd love someone who's going to run and drive at defenders. However, the way that Burnley play for years now, not just this season, we bypass the midfield majority of our attacking play. It's a long ball up to win a throw-in or a set piece. It's dropped back, and it's usually Westy or Lawton or Taylor that are providing the crosses anyway. McNeil, obviously, as well. So it's not necessarily always down to the winger. Majority of the players that are doing it aren't even wingers that are providing the assists.
Yeah, exactly. It's good. But we get a lot of them, like you say, from set pieces and stuff. So, but as Gavin Weir said, if we had a right midfielder who, with pace on the right winger, who can cross, we would be very, very good. I think if you'd have McNeil on the left, as inconsistent as I'm going to say now, because he was fantastic against Everton. He's had a few really good games this season now. And he has, if you look at the stats, the stats are still saying he's had an okay season, but I think McNeil this season has been a little bit inconsistent myself. But I think we'd have so much balance, wouldn't we, if we had someone on the right wing that could do half of a job as what McNeil could do. So imagine what bringing a winger in on the right-hand side could do to this team. I agree with you, though. We do need another centre-back, and that's why I would still sign a centre-back. Yeah,
it's a good question. I think they both got a good case, so it's a good question.
I'll go back to a comment that Chris said earlier. What would you say the minimum we should spend should be this summer? Now, I'm never that fussed about how much we spend. I don't think we should say, if you don't spend 50 million quid, it's not good enough. It's about who you bring in, obviously. Yeah. If we can find someone for 10 million quid who's class, in the foreign market, for example, because, that tends to be where the bargains are, then I'm happy with that. But yeah, if we signed a £50 million dud, like Newcastle have, on several occasions over the last few years, then we're not going to be happy with that. So I don't think there's a mark of how much we should spend. It's about who we bring in. I
agree. I think you've got to look at the value of players now is vastly overpriced anyway. It's irrelevant necessarily to their ability nowadays. It's just about the what they can bring you and how desperately you need them. But for example, you could go to the Championship now, go and get a Brentford player, defender, and probably have to spend 20 to 30 million because he's proven himself at the top of the Championship. Or you could get Ben Davies, who's been at the top of the Championship before Preston, and you could get him for free. Does that mean that the £20 million player is better than the freebie that you're getting because Liverpool don't want him and he's surplus? This is the thing that I'm saying about is how valuable they are to that club at that time.
Exactly, yeah. So in answer to your question, Chris, I don't think there is a number that we should spend. We need to sign players.
One thing I will say, sign then? Instead,
we need a winger. We need a winger. We need a centre back. I'd still like to bring a right back in. As fantastic as Lawton has been this season, and I'm going to ask you another question in a bit, which I want people to answer in the comments about something to do with Lawton. I do still think we should be having a younger one ready to come in if and when. Cause I know Barnes has just signed a new contract, so it might be a bit silly to have three at the club at any one time. But I still think we need a right back. I'd like another striker as well. I don't know. I think I'm not saying Barnes has passed it. I know a few people have said that this season, and I believe that they're wrong. But I think Barnes is getting on a bit now. Jay's getting he's wrong side of 30 anyway. I think Jay's same age as me, so around 32, 33. So I'd like a younger winger, a younger striker to come in. So I think maybe I'm talking in a bit of a dream world, but for me, a centre back, someone at the like of Ben Davies, Bartley, Areola, as a few people have mentioned, and things like that. A right back, a right winger, and a striker. So that's four. That's four. But whether or not they'll that's living in a dream world or not, I'm not sure. What about you? How many would you want to bring in?
So I'm looking at it the same way as you. I think two midfielders, whether they be wingers necessarily or adaptable, is another thing. But call it two wingers. I do think we need a centre half. Do you know what? I like Peters. I like Bardsley. It's a difficult one. I'd say three players is what I would be looking at getting this summer and keeping the rest. If we obviously remove one, then replace that one as well.
Yeah, just in answer to your question, Chris, Harry Wilson, I don't know. I think we were linked with him in the summer, weren't we? He's not done much in the Championship, to be fair. Dan James, now there you go. Of course, I'd definitely be happy with him, but I don't think we could get him. Just because we're a bit conscious that we're getting towards 1 o'clock and situations in houses are going to change at 1 o'clock, I'm going to ask a question that I want to ask Simon now. And I think I already know Simon's answer. I'm basically asking you lot in the chat. Who will you tell me in the chat, and Simon, of course, who is your player of the season so far? Now, I know a few people have had this. I had this debate on Twitter. I think Lanx Live did it recently, and a few people were getting involved. I'm split between two. I think for me, it's either Matthew Lawton or Ben Mee. I think that the difference in this club when Ben Mee's come back into the side just shows how important he is. So I'm maybe possibly leaning towards Ben Mee, but Lawton has been fantastic this season. I think he had a bit of a slow start, but the entire team had a slow start. But since then he's been class. Obviously, he scored the worldie. He played fantastic at Palace. He was brilliant against Everton, brilliant against Liverpool as well. Solid. But for me, I'm aiming towards Ben Mee. What are you saying, Simon?
Yeah, it's a difficult one. We've not had an electric season. We've not had any sort of unbelievable stars. However, some of the best performances I've seen this season in a Burnley shirt from Matt Lawton have come this season, and the consistency level, he's risen the bar for me. You could make a case for pretty much the whole starting 11 in a different manner sometimes, but I'd be surprised if the few comments start saying Mumbongo or Vidra, but I would go for Lawton, and just because of the consistency and the raise of the bar this season, he's had some of the best performances I've seen.
Yeah, I've not no problems with giving it Lawton. Like I said, I would just edge for Ben Mee though, simply because of how different we were with him not being in the side and just being in the side. Getting loads of comments coming in though about that. It's always good to see. If you haven't put your comment in yet, please do. Gavin Weir says Ben Mee, he's just a rock. Kieran Phillips, now he says Josh Brownhill, hands down. I don't have any issues with that either. I think he's been classic middle at Park. I think the reason why Brownhill won't get it though is because he has had some poor performance at right mid, which isn't his fault. It isn't his fault, but I think that's why he won't get it. Joey Schilling says Tarkett or Pope. Again, got no issues with either of them, really.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
Yeah, Tarkey's Mr. Consistent. Pope, you can hang your hat on Pope, so I'm not too bothered about that. Phil says Mee or Pope. Joe Clark says the season turned around for me when Mee became a starter again. And yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying, mate. That's why I'm going for Ben Mee. That's because of how good we were. Now, Gaz has gone with something a little bit different here. He says Westwood. I think Westwood has been okay this season, but I think he's not been as good as he has been in certain seasons. For me, I'd still play him in the middle with Brownhill at the minute. Yeah, and Gavin as well, he says Taylor, if he's fully fit, the guy's a legend. Again, he's Mr. Consistent, isn't he? He's not going to rip any trees up, but, he has been Mr. Consistent. One thing I do want to do as well, before we wrap up, is last week I asked a question, which, if I'm going to be brutally honest with you, on the Pitch Sport app, I'm not sure if I actually can even remember it now. But what I like to do is I like to go over the question and sort of read people's responses out. Oh, Neil, hold on. Before we do that, and thank you for buying me a bit of time, Neil Layfield is in the chat. It's good to see you, Neil. He says, afternoon, lads. Sorry I'm late to the party. Now, do not worry. If you're late to the party, like Neil, or you've just started watching in the last 10, 15 minutes or so, then that's fine, because obviously we're broadcasting this live on YouTube and on Facebook. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel yet, please go ahead and subscribe to it. And if you haven't liked the Facebook page yet, please give it a like, and then you'll see more streams as and when we go live. Then it will. This video is staying on them social media channels. So when we finish this live stream, you can go back and start watching it again now. And of course, Neil, as you always do, listen to it on the podcast, because once this is finished, now I'm going to get the audio out, send it out as an actual podcast. So if you want to do that, then of course you can do that. But yeah, just going back to that, I've finally bought some time. Thank you, Neil, for that brilliantly timed comment. The last question that I sent to the Pitch Sport guys, as you can see, there it is, my question. Do you think our performance against Everton was the best of the season so far? So quickly, if you hadn't answered it on the Pitch Sport app, answer it in the comments and I will read some of the ones out. And Simon, I'll ask you the question. Do you think our performance against Everton was the best of the season so far?
Yeah, it can't be argued, can it? I think there's not been a more sort of ruthless performance, let's put it that way. I thought that it was just deflating at that one point when that one goal went in. I think it was Calvert-Lewin that put it in.
Yeah.
Other than that, mate, we were solid. We bossed it. We had attacking. We had fluid. We had great goals. Not just Dwight. We forget that sometimes Chris Wood had a beautiful finish, we'll call it.
Yeah, it was a beautiful finish from Chris.
We've got some great build-up play. Defensively, rather solid. I'm just disappointed we let that goal in the manner we did. So yeah, hands down for me, mate.
You said it can't be argued. Joey Schilling has argued it. He says, I'm going to say no. It's definitely up there, but I'd have said Palace away as we ripped them a new one. Now, I said in the video, I said it's only Palace or Everton, isn't it? As much as we look back on the Liverpool and Arsenal ones with brilliance, and great memories, the Arsenal one, obviously, I thought we had a lucky goal, I think it's fair to say. In the Liverpool one, we defended brilliantly, but it wasn't a brilliant all-round performance, whereas the Everton and the Palace games, I think they were brilliant all-round performances. You had your hand up like you wanted to speak. Yeah.
My defence to this on my comment was, when Zaha wasn't in that starting 11, I lumped on Burnley because I had a feeling then that they are there for the taking. I didn't necessarily have that same confidence just because James Rodriguez wasn't playing, because they still have. They're not a one-man team like Crystal Palace are. So for that reason, I think that it was they were there for the taking when Everton still had enough quality on that pitch to turn us over if they wanted.
Yeah, fair enough. So we've got Joey Shilling who says no. Phil Tricks Wilcock agrees. He says the Everton. Kieran Phillips says yes, closely followed by Palace away. Like I said, it's only one of them two, isn't it? Joe Clark, he says Aston Villa away. I think that you're referring to last season, mate, because obviously this season it was 0-0. Phil says Palace are shite without Zaha, yeah. And then this is why I agree with the fact that it's our best opponent. I agree with Simon's comment. He says, Simon Holding, by the way, not Simon telling me. He says definitely by far and quality of the opponent. And that's why I think it's best. Because everything. Yeah, it is. Yeah. So obviously they've got good players there. They had Allen playing. They've got good defenders. Michael Keane. As much as we give Pickford grief, he's a decent shot stopper. He just gets caught under crosses and stuff sometimes. So yeah, I'd agree with that. I think it's the Everton one, but that's what I agree with, and that's sort of Simon and the majority of you as well. There's only really Joey Shilling who doesn't. In fact, Phil Tricks actually says I've missed that. He says I'd say Everton away was our best performance under Dyche in the Premier League. Best away performance.
Well, I'd have to research that because my memory's not great. I'd have to go through it and say, but yeah, it's a good argument.
I'd probably say Man United 2-0. I don't know if that's just because of
the magnitude of it.
Yeah, the magnitude of it. But that's my standout. That's my standout memory from Dyche. I think that the 2-0 win at Man United, and obviously me and you were there. It was just absolute scenes. Stephen Hartley, we are going to start wrapping up now, so. We probably won't be answering any more questions, but I'll just quickly put out what Stephen Hartley says on screen. He says, we always tend to play better after we hit the 30-point mark. Dyche pushes the central midfielders further up and we create more chances. Everton performance was the best by far. I think what that is, Stephen. Yeah, I think what that is I think we're just naturally the pressure is off, isn't it? Once you get to that 30-point mark, we're not safe, but you've got to that point mark with a certain amount of games in hand, and you kind of know that, all right, you're probably going to stay up now. I've been saying we're going to stay up all season pretty much. But when you get to that marker, your pressure's off, innit? So I think that's what's happened with that.
Massively. Sort of like we've all done it. We've all played to a sport of some level in this chat. Even I don't play football, but I used to play wheelchair basketball, and the level of fun that you have when the pressure is off is massively different. You know what I mean? When you're playing a game that's thingy, you start playing a different type of football or whatever. So yeah, it's only natural to have that responsibility removed almost to then start playing better. Definitely.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Final question then for you, Simon. Are we now safe?
Yeah, I've said it many a time. I've said it on the podcast a few weeks ago. I've said it when I was asked how many points would you get. I can't remember which episode it were now. Do I think there's enough? I even said at that point that Newcastle, with the injuries and everything else that's going on, are in absolute free fall. And I think there's been about 5 games since then, and they are still falling. And I do not look like they're going to even grab hold of the thing. But we'll see what happens. It's do you know what? Steve Bruce. I like Steve Bruce, and I like. So I don't mind Newcastle, to be honest with you. I know some people in here will probably hate Newcastle. I grew up watching Ginola and fucking Aspria and all them lot and Shearer and thinking that Newcastle were a good team to watch in an unbelievable stadium. So I've no actual issues with Newcastle. But when a manager comes out and says, to respond to Scott Parker's comment, we'll see where they are at the end of the season, you are setting yourself up for a failure.
He's lost it. That time when Kevin Keegan turned around and said, I'd love it if we beat them, love it. Fergie sat back in his chair when Kevin Keegan said that and went, happy days I've won.
Job done.
Scott Parker, exactly. Scott Parker would have gone, job done. He's cracked. Yeah. And Scott Parker's not played any mind games. He's just done his own thing and looked like he's, in Blur or something like that song. No, that Part Life
I think it was the media that forced the issue, wasn't it? I think the media just basically said, do you think you'll stay up? Because Scott Parker thinks they will. They're like, well, we'll see where they are at the end of the season. But what a last game of the season. I would actually pick that over possibly the Burnley game if we are safe. I would love to see how that pans out live.
I would love it if they went down. I don't know. I think Newcastle might get dragged into it. Sheffield United are gone, obviously. West Brom are gone, obviously. It's Sheffield United. I think Brighton will edge away. I think they've got 6 points out of the last 2 games against Newcastle and Southampton, 2 very poor sides. So I think they're safe. Someone asked earlier, and I forgot to mention it as well. Do you think we'll beat Southampton? I do.
We're away. I've forgotten where we're at. Are we at home? We're away, aren't we?
We're away, but I still think We'll beat them. I think we'll beat them. Play like we did against Everton, we will definitely beat them. They are
I think so. I'm slightly worried with a team like Southampton. Normally, even if they're in good form, I would say, yeah, we've got a chance. But because they're playing so shit, and because I've seen them play so well in the previous part of the season, in the earlier part, you've got half a thing in your brain to say that they can switch it back around, surely. So I am worried. I'm not as confident as possibly you are, let's put it that way.
Well, Ings is on his way back and he started training this week apparently, so that'll be a bit of a shitter and stuff if he comes back because he's obviously by far and away their best player. Yeah, he's by far and away their best player. But fingers crossed, he don't make it in time. And without him, I don't think they've got a goal scorer. So anyway, I've been threatening to wrap it up for a while, so we will wrap it up now. As you can see, we're eligible for Facebook Stars. Big shout out again to Stuart Rhodes and to Gaz for sending the stars in. And if you have liked what we've done, then please feel free to send some. Now you can send them just as we're wrapping up. You can send them to all videos. Just go down and it'll say, do you want to send stars to Turfcast? Just press yes. It's absolutely fantastic. Phil says, cheers, lads, enjoying it. Joey Shilling says, cheers all. Been a good chat and debate. Yeah, thank you, everybody, for getting involved. And if, like Neil, you're just watching it late or you joined halfway through, once we finish your stream, you can go back to the beginning and start it. And what I will do now is I'll go on the computer behind me. I'll cut this audio up. In fact, I won't even cut it up. I'll just stick a song on the end and stick a song on the other end and then put it out as a podcast. So if you prefer to listen to it while you're driving, then feel free. But thank you to everybody that's got involved. Thank you to Simon for coming on. And when will we be back now? We will be back next Thursday for the pre-Southampton podcast. Again, it probably won't be too long. It won't be as long as this one anyway because there's not too much to talk about. We'll probably be doing the similar sort of thing where we chat about internationals and then we'll obviously look ahead to the Southampton game. I'll try and do a pre-Southampton pre-game show. And then, of course, on Sunday, we will be live for the watch-along, which is our most popular show. It'll be streamed on Facebook and YouTube like this, and probably on Twitch as well. But thank you, everybody, for joining in, and we'll see you next week. Sunday for Southampton. Sorry, Sunday. Thank you, Joey Shilling. We'll see you Sunday for the watch.